want to say thank you very much, everybody, for attending our final talk for our 9th Sterling Annual August Translation Studies Research event. So our final talk will be delivered by Dr. Johan Franzon from the University of Helsinki. It's been a great pleasure to have you here, Johan. So Dr. Johan Franzon is a university lecturer at the Department of Finnish and Scandinavian Studies in the University of Helsinki, where he teaches Scandinavian languages and translation. Beginning with his doctoral dissertation on the musical My Fair Lady, he has worked to explore the field of sound translation in several articles on topics such as musical theater translation, choices of sound translators, dimensions of singability, and the variable fidelities in Swedish pop sound translations. In 2021, he co-edited the anthology's sound translation, Lyrics in Context. 2022, he also produced as a musical producer with a CD of his own translation of Finnish children's songs. Wow, that's very impressive. So without further ado, because we're slightly running late, so I will just leave the floor to you. And it's been a great pleasure to have you here. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm wondering, yes, people see and hear everything all over the world, but I wonder, this is somewhere somewhat in the way, isn't it? Right, yeah, is this enough to see, do you think?
It's great, yeah.
The name of my talk is Song Translation Studies, but I'd like to, now I get rid of those little red squiggly things that are so ugly. And we'll go from here, shall we? Yes. And now we're running late, and I'm really not sure. There is no clock here, so I have no very vague idea of time. But we'll start and then see what happens. I can wrap up when we need to. So well, I'm going to. This is basically just my ideas, my notion of what translation studies is, and what should be important to consider if then song translation studies is a discipline, a subfield within translation studies. And well, the first thing that question that comes into mind is what is this good for? Is this improving? Is this working for world peace in some way? Is it worth doing? And but things come up all the time, and this year this came up a reason. You know who this is? Does anyone recognize this girl? We'll see if the chat comes up in the chat. There is another picture of her that is more recognizable, but I don't think I didn't want to show that. But it was the same girl in an air raid shelter in Kiev, in the Ukraine. In March, she became famous for singing a song during the siege of Kiev. Anyone heard her? Yeah, what's her name? Amelie Anisovich, right? Amelie Anisovich. And she sang a translated song, Let It Go from Frozen, in the Ukraine dubbed version. And this led to her, a week after that, she was in Poland, I think, and sometime after that, I think here she is in Wales, singing at least also the Ukrainian anthem. But well, my thought is that whenever something important happens, whatever, sad things, horrible things, happy things, weddings, celebrations, somewhere in the corner of it, there is a person singing a song. And the song, it's not of the most used as a materially or monetary, but obviously songs are very important to human activities. And I think I'll have to leave it at that songs are important to very many people, and also in cross-cultural communications, song plays a part. This is Ukraine being part of the world that watches Disney films, or you can we're somewhere. I'll leave it at that. But then I'm also very happy to say that in this last 2 decades, there has been an increasing amount of research, studies, papers about song translation. And I couldn't imagine that I would be standing here now saying this 20 years ago, when I happened to have a little experience of translating musicals from Broadway English to Swedish, and that I happened to be in a position that I needed to start a PhD work. And I thought that this would be musical comedy translation, would be my unique contribution to translation studies. And then there was a hole there, because when I looked around, I found practically nothing written about song translation. And I got the impression that this simply wasn't a thing that translation scholars were interested in. It didn't seem to be relevant for the field. But then time went on, and what one finds is that one found as occasional mentions. The scholars, the experts, some of them were conscious that songs were translated. So what you find were short mentions like this. Junior Naida, the great man, he knew that songs were translated, and most occasionally, most of the times, what came up was as a prescriptive descriptions. What are the demands of translating songs? Like the right number of syllables to suit the music, the notes, rhymes, and vowels to be singable. Things like that came up again and again. For example, Hervey and Higgins' thinking translation, they said almost the same thing. When you translate a song, you take considerable liberties, you change the sense. But then I think they were quite smart to add also that libretto translators translating opera not only you have to follow the music, there may also be expectations that a target language audience has of the genre. And that seems typical, that with songs, there are maybe strong expectations. A song should sound and be in a certain way. One also found, one finds books on music, songs crossing the world, like tango nostalgia, that you find them not in mainstream translation studies, but in culture studies, semiotics, and you find an occasional article in a journal such as Target, mostly about opera translation, but it somehow didn't cohere. But then what happened is in the last years, I think, as of what I'd like to have seen is that translation studies, song translation studies, have sort of retraced the journey that general translation studies have taken, but in a much briefer time. So, well, you know that translation studies likes to write its own history as a succession of turns, epochs. So, and that's what happens with song translation too, I think. We first had the linguistic beginnings of scholars helping translators to translate. So with the linguistic turn, or the prescriptive beginnings. And that's what came first, as we have, I don't know if you can see the books there, but there have been 2 very good readable books, Apter and Herman, about the translating for singing. They write mostly about translating opera, into singable English, but with many good points on how to mind the music. Peter Lowe, a volume, a slim volume that gives instructor practical advice about various kinds of songs for various kinds of purposes in a helpful prescriptive manner. And also they have written articles before that and there are other articles of that kind, but then came the cultural turn into descriptive research, as looking at actual empiric material and see what, and we have the pioneer for this is Susan Sarajeva, a book about transcultural intimacy, then exploring the theoretical works and consequences, conceptualization of exchange of music between cultures, and in this case a certain type of Greek music, how it has been received in Turkey and translated in different ways, singing, non-singing, and so on, and arguing for the value, the causes and consequences of this cultural exchange. Why is it valuable to explore? But then it seems also translation studies took a technological turn with new language, computer-aided translation and multilingual resources. And it seems that this has also happened with song translation. Now, this is what I've seen most articles about in AVT, audiovisual translation. Songs are not just about media, but it seems that the people studying AVT were most eager to see what do you do with songs, what happens to songs, because songs are in films and you have to do something with them. And after that came, I think, also things like subtitling opera or other kind of accessibility, hard of hearing. It all plays into what you do with music. And the one to point to here is Lucille de Blas, music and translation. She takes up accessibility, explaining music. And then after this, I think we are expected to look forward to a post-translation turn. It is Edwin Gensler who has argued that after all this talk about translation, now we need to make an outward turn to interdisciplinary work and towards the modern multimodal mediation of materials, and see not just how you translate, but what happens with these translations when they become adapted into films and so on, the afterlife of the translator's work. And I think songs fit perfectly into this paradigm. And we have Lucille de Blas here in her book. She sort of scans the landscape of what you do, can you translate music in other ways than just writing singable lyrics. There were precursors also in anthology, minors, music, text, and translation, and some articles. Dindal, Horle, Klaus Kindl has done little work here. And in this area, then de Blas proposes a term as a music translation should be a term. I wish her the best of luck with that. How do you translate music? But this brings us on to the problem of what is this subject called? What is the name of the research field? And it has been as a various suggestions. And I think part of the problem is that people go into this field and they don't read each other's suggestions. So you came in from all directions, but they are different. And the most used one, commonly used one is I think translation and music, because this was one of the first anthologies. Susan Sarajeva edited a volume of The Translator, and many people are using translation and music as a heading for all this research. But there have been other proposals. Vocal translation. She also proposes that we could talk about interlingual cover versions in an article. And another suggestion is vocal translation in a book. And in that book also there's an article with a suggestion, MLT, music linked translation. And they have all been used a little, but looking at the field, I must say that most articles, recent articles, I have this row of art, and I have a bibliography on paper if you'd like to have it. But there are plenty of people, Peter Lowe, Johan Franzon, and a row of Klungervik Greenwald, they use the term song translation. They say that they study song translation. And based on numbers, I think prediction is that it would be possible to talk about song translation studies, because that's the term that most prefer. But then, of course, it must, of course, be possible also to say vocal translation if you're focusing on vocal aspects, singing with or without words. And music link translation would be broader, even broader. Music discussed in prose, in books, in text, and somehow music related. But I would say that 90% of the work done here are by people who are interested in songs. So song translation studies would be the study of everything that can happen to songs in translingual, cross-cultural exchanges in translation, however you then would define translation. And these new people who in recent years have written in this field, what have they done? Well, I think it's a result of the digital globalization that that's what makes it so surprising for me that there are so many things, but also because they are easily available. And I find lots of many as a master theses or articles by, I presume, young scholars who explore some aspect of this, mostly case studies. And looking at this, also where are we? These are titles of articles that I have just culled to give you a picture of what has been done and what can be done. And I think from the beginning, also we have the field of audiovisual translation is, well, at least preliminarily covered quite well. And I think on Disney songs, especially Frozen, Let It Go, the dubbing or subtitling of it is well explored. But well, it can be explored further. I think there are many aspects of musical theater interest people, the music, but then also you find some perhaps also special interest as in Italy, in Spain, Brazil, Italy, to and from Italian, but also I find some interest in Turkey, especially, I think, and it's very interesting that arrangement in Turkey, there's a special word for song translation in Turkish, and it means that it's from arrangement. You sing a foreign song, you make an arrangement. So it's not exactly indicates a faithful translation, but then also Chinese translation. And a very interesting proposition then is to make automatic song translation for tonal languages. I haven't quite looked into how they are solving that, but they're working on. So it's mostly, half of it is AVT and most of it is pop songs, popular music, but it also crops up an occasional article about opera, art song, and here, like the case of translated ecclesial songs, also religious, church related, also folk song. But I think these areas, there are room for more work to be done. It may be more difficult to grasp. But some people also say that we need a conceptualization. I see in these articles too, that more and more of them are starting to read each other's works. And they have read also at least some of the books that I showed you previously. So I think this is slowly cohering into something well, that you can call a subfield. But some say that we need some more coherent picture of what song translation is and could or should be. So I'm wondering what to do. And it does sometimes give a bit of a scattered impression. And I think this is my main contribution to show you why, or to tell you that I think that any conceptualization theoretical model is okay with me, as long as it somehow takes into account that songs consist of three most important elements: lyrics, music, and performance. I have long tried to tout a definition of song and saying that a song is a piece of music and lyrics that is written, one adapted to the other, music and lyrics, or both to one and another, written at the same time. But then also, most important, designed for a singing performance. A song is, of course, printed on paper, but it's not a song until it's sung. It's meant to be sung. But then the performance element, it also leaves some room for a translator, because the translator in some way is performing this song that exists before, music and lyrics, and turning it into a performance in a target language. But then these can be variable, also they can be varied. You can have, if you have a translation relation, you have some sort of source target relation. And as with all translations, then there is an ideal at one end that you want your product to be as similar as possible to the source product, but then there is another end where you where it is different, inevitably somehow different, source oriented or target oriented. And it seems that there are different kinds of uses of song, or genres of song, or translation situations. And why it varies, I think, is that there are all these different needs for translating a song. And I have collected, I try to have the most obvious, typical examples of songs in translation. And these three fundamental elements of song appear in different ways. But cases that reward similarity, sameness, would be also the obvious. A songwriter, renowned songwriter, I think, if a songwriter is considered to be of literary value or very well known or popular, then you tend to want to reproduce it very faithfully. You want to translate Jacques Brel to capture everything that he is and made and did, and Bob Dylan or what have you. But then also in music theater, of course, also you're contractually obliged to have the same musical in foreign countries as originally. So then also the songs must be the same. The cases where the music is of primary importance then would be the classic realm. If you translate an opera, you're not supposed to change a note of the music. The music is to be produced exactly as it is intended. And then that is the primary importance to the translator. And to some lesser extent, all music that is written in sheet music, where you have the music printed, and the translator has, sometimes the translator has access to printed music. And then you would think that the process is a bit differently from a translator who's translating by ear. You play the music from a vocal score, the translator needs to mind that. But then there are cases also where the performance is what is the same, identically the same, where you overdub the voices on a film or music tracks, then you can't change anything. So then you have the performance down to the mouth movements. And I suppose it would be something similar to when you have a cover of a pop song. If it's a new hit, then you would tend to want to sing this. If you have this hit and you sing it with your local band at a venue, then you want to sing it as similarly as possible as it was originally sung, as opposed to, this is just my basic hypothesis, if it's an old standard, an old song that is many decades old, then if you want to make a cover of it, you want to take your own spin, you want to change it, you want to do it your way, make it your own, like a jazz standard or something similar. And I think then this would affect the music and lyrics. If you're singing it, then you would also perhaps want to change the words so that the lyrics fit this new target language performance. When it comes to these different factors that encourage difference, change, then you also have, I think you can make a division between lyrics-based, music-based, and performance-based. And this is more diverse because then there are cases where lyrics, music, performance doesn't matter at all for the translation situation, for the translation scopus. And the first one would be then one would find many a pop song, hit tune cover, which the music is bought and performed, but the target language lyrics are completely different. You buy a song and you write completely new songs for it. There's several, especially in the old days, pre-1980. But I think this, but what it's not always completely different. They are hints or two, some words, some notions. It is more or less the same, but sometimes completely different. It works almost. Is it parallel to what goes under the heading of parody? You have an existing song and then you write a parody, either for mocking purposes or for some completely different purpose. What you call, I think you call it special occasion song. You write a song for a special occasion, for a political purpose, or for a party, or for a celebration, or campfire songs. What is it? Intralingual or interlingual. They have some traces of the original lyrics, but they being the same is not the primary importance. Then there are also cases where the music is not present at all in the translation, and that would be subtitling. You don't need to have singable subtitles, but sometimes you do, or any kind of what you'd call perhaps transcription or prose translation in books, songbooks, librettos, and so on. You translate also songs as a literal translation, or what interlinear translation for educating purposes. And I think the same goes somewhat similar if you don't have sheet music, but songs in oral tradition. The music, you learn the music by ear. So like folk songs, the music will change through centuries. And the same happens when someone picks up a song from another country and sings it himself. Performance will be different. I think if you have a music video and make a target language version, if the original music video in the original language exists already, it seems that your own music video would have to be somewhat different. You can't just copy it visually. And there we are. So then what happens, I think, is that researchers that study, they tend to focus on one of these all different uses and genres, and they sort of come into the field with a mindset of the people who do these or use these translations. So then it doesn't naturally cohere into, like when you translate a poem, it's natural to assume that you produce a poem. The source product is, the target product is a poem. And perhaps you can have, well, it seems you can explore the habitus of poetry translators, but song translators don't seem to belong in the same group because many kinds of things can happen to songs. And I think the reason is that song is not a literary genre, or not just a literary genre, but it's also a mode of human communication. You have speaking, writing, listening, and singing. No, it's not the fifth one of those, but it's a mode of communication that can appear in many different guises. And this is my basic message, that to explore song translation, you need somehow to take into account that you have lyrics, music, but also performance. And all three of these factors can change in the translation process. And I'd like to now go on to where I don't see any time anywhere, but I have two examples, and I've been most happy if I could demonstrate the use of minding lyrics, music, as well as performance. So now I would like to direct your attention to a Swedish star singer. She was very big in her day in the 60s, Siw Malmkvist, and she's still alive and still adored by the Swedish public. she had an international career. So she sang in 10, recorded in 10 languages, and especially in Germany, she was very much well appreciated, a star. And in Sweden, she later turned into something of an acrobat or a comic actress, and did musical plays. Pippi Longstocking, a comic actress, I said. But one of the things she did was the song Sadie the Cleaning Lady, a minor hit, perhaps. In Australia, at least, they seem to know it. In Sweden, it's very well known in her version. Mamma är lik sin mamma. But then she also recorded it in Danish. Mor är som hennes mor var. Some other people did it in Norwegian. Min mor, hon är som sin mor. And in Finnish too. Äiti, kuin äidin äiti. Well, you can see already here that there is some kind of pattern going on. Bum, bum, ba-da-da, bum, bum. That is reproduced, that everyone needs to reproduce. But it can be rhyme. Min mor, sin mor, repetition, mamma, mamma, or just some pattern. Mor är. Mother is like her mother was. But yeah, form is important. And the big mystery of this expiration would then be when she recorded it in German. Frauen sind doch nur Frauen. Why wasn't it an equally big hit in Germany as it was in Sweden, and I think almost in the other neighboring countries? So now I'll ask you, it was sung, written by Americans, I think, but recorded by Australian artist John Farnham. He still lives. Does anyone know this song? Is it famous? Sadie,
It rings
the
a
Cleaning
bell
Lady.
vaguely
Yes.
from when I was a kid.
It seems it's tribute to this staunch woman. What do you say? A paean to someone's mother. Worked her fingers to the bone. Yeah, he performed. This is one video that you find of him performing. She doesn't look like a cleaning lady, the dancer. It's more a French maid, isn't it, with apron but without a skirt. But the music video, Scrub Your Floors. Yeah, but now I'll show you the Swedish video, and then the question is, what is she singing? What do you think the Swedish song is about? If you'll have a guess. I wonder, it should work this way. Right, but then no, I won't have that. The problem is now, is it, do you hear it?
Not really a little. Only a little, so maybe there is an option called there's new share.
Ah, new share, right?
Yeah.
New share,
And then
share sound.
sound.
That's how you do it.
Yeah.
That's how you do
And
it,
then
right?
share.
And share.
Yeah. And
That's
then,
how you do it. Now.
Yeah.
Try. And are we back now here, or do I have to?
new share. Yeah.
New share. Right. You think so? Where do you now have? Oh, well. Slideshow, where is slideshow? Right. Slideshow. Now I see. Yeah. What is she singing about? You think she's singing? Is she singing about Sadie, the cleaning lady? Obviously, doesn't it? That's what she's doing. Is it surprising that if oh, do you see this? She also sang it like that on stage with scrubbing, what do you call it, coat, cleaning.
Yeah.
And she has the pail of water and the broom and the bucket when she's, but the Swedish lyrics go like this in translation. Mother is like her mother. A woman's plight in life is the same. So say brother, life is nothing but dusting, damma, damma. The same old chores to take care of. It's something is similar. Do your chores, dear old Sadie. Same old chores. But yeah, the music video was shot. Then you saw the Stockholm Metro system, one of the first examples of a music video. But the Swedish lyrics do not at all mention a cleaning lady. She is not a cleaning lady. The text says she is a mother, and she thinks that this is the life of a mother. It mentions cleaning, but it's also dusting, and it's polishing shoes, it's washing shirts and all other things that a housewife should do. In Swedish, this becomes, this is a closer comparison. So yeah, so I would call this, then it is a translation. Some of the things, images, and then the character is the same, but then perhaps it's a perspective shift. It's not we don't know her name, we don't know her work, but it's still the story from another perspective, the perspective of the woman. So instead of a tale of woe or something like, I don't know, we're asked to pity Sadie in Australian, but in Swedish, perhaps I think it becomes something of a protest song. She's protesting. Why do I have to do all the cleaning? But of course, it's a comic song. It's a comic complaint. But it has been covered as in recent years. Girls born in this millennium, they cover it. They have sung it now again, and it seems that they imagine that this is some kind of feminist anthem from the 60s. That this commercial veneer has sort of waned off, and now all what you hear is that this is a feminist song, and this is because one word here, perhaps later on it comes up, mamma, och detta kallas emancipationen, samma rätt som mormors mor, ja. And this is what you call women's liberation. So I think because of just one word, this whole song can be interpreted as, well, a feminist protest song. Is it because of the word, or is it mainly because of her performance? Watching her, does she? Yeah. At least you should get the impression that she is angry. Yeah, some way. In English, also, you're only feeling sorry for her. Her aching knees, determined hands, have for years not held a man's. She doesn't get any love, this Sadie, cleaning woman. In Swedish, she says that the man is expected that he reads Fanny Hill, Lady Chatterley's lover, and then she expects those things of me at night, but I don't want to have it anymore. Is this emancipation? So, well, it's a song that is somehow transformed. Now let's see what happens if we, why was this not a hit in Germany? She also had a German career and sang it. Now let's see. Now we're neither here nor there. Right. So then what I do, of course, is share screen again. Share sound.
Frauen sind doch nur Frauen. Die sollen im Hause nach dem Rechten schauen. So sprach Urgroßpapa schon zur Urgroßmama. Die Männer waren immer schon die Schlauen. Ja, Frauen sind doch nur Frauen. Auch heute noch plagen wir uns ab im Hause. Putzen, scheuern alle Zeit in demselben alten Kleid. Doch wenn der Mann nach Haus kommt, hat er Pause.
Yeah, that will do it, I think. Can you imagine? Right, Share screen. No, I'll imagine that this performance in German made a different impression, resulting in the song not making that big an impression in Germany. Perhaps you can think that in Germany, housewives did not protest as much as the Scandinavian women did in the late 60s. There was a different culture. Or has it to do with just the visual impression, the presentation situation? Has that got something to do with it?
It's a very polished, glamorous performance, isn't it?
She looks nicer in German.
Yeah. Yeah, the lyrics being emancipatory, maybe there's a contrast there.
Yeah, there is a difference that you can analyze, and the German lyrics are part of that. You can go closer into the German lyrics and see that it's changed somewhat. The German lyrics says that men are the smarter ones, she says. Oh. And it's sort of colored, the same story, but it's manipulated. But then also in Germany, she didn't have all that to do with dressing up, and so in Germany she was known singing romantic ballads mostly. And she was not, the people who hired her, they had her sing, like this before audiences, and you want to look pretty. So then the comic intent of the song could not come forth. So you can look at the lyrics, you can look at the performance, but then the music, as you hear, is the same. It's in all a little bit different, arranged, but it gives the same impression as the original hit, because you want to copy the music that made it a hit. Now I have another. I hope that I can then, right. Nu ska vi se. Moving forward in time, I'm not so familiar, but now it's a modern song from 1989. But this cover version is just from recent years. It's from a Disney film. And can you say, oh, yeah, perhaps you can tell also from hearing the lyrics what this song is called. She first sings as 8 bars of verse, and then comes the refrain. And the word comes as the first line of the refrain, but also in the last line of the refrain, the chorus. And what is the song called is what I'd like to see. So there we have it, and then we have slideshow again. So, no. What is the name of the song? Under the Sea. From which film? It doesn't matter. Did she sing Under the Sea?
Yeah.
Yes. No. No. Yes. No. Yes and no. Yes and no. You heard her singing Under the Sea. Yes, and that is also the kernel, also the fascinating thing to me. And now, of course, it hid the subtitles, but I don't know. I'll tell you. But could you see that the subtitles are also part of the performance? It is part of the picture. Because it's part of the presentation. But what she sang was, and which language? And this, you didn't see the girl who came up here after the reference. She played sanshin, I think, from what an instrument from Okinawa, the Okinawa Islands, south of Japan. But then the two boys, they played on different instruments, and there was a combination of a Hawaiian guitar and then a cibar box guitar, and that's what. But the words, I can't really read that. Can you? No. This is, but it's hiragana, Japanese script, no. And the word is, it's in uchinaguchi. It's an Okinawan language, and it's not really also. There is no standard of how to spell it. That they would need their own alphabet, actually, being a different language, but it's transcribed in Japanese phonetically. But what she sings is Anjarasa, Anjarasa. That's what you heard. Anjarasa, you hear it as under the sea, but it is uchinaguchi, and it means them beautiful. It is their word for beautiful sea floor. But then when it comes back in the last end of the phrase, she sings under the sea. And then what the subtitles give is under the sea. This is the hiragana transcription of the English word under the syllables, and also under the sea. The bottom line of the subtitles writes it in English, but in the first time, these antarasa minusuku, then you have in the lower line, you have in parentheses Japanese literal translation of the lyrics. But that's what also happens in song translation, that you borrow words, you borrow phrases, you mix languages. But then also the big thing about this is that this is a language that is not much spoken anymore. It's dying out. But this band, Nanairo Note, and other bands are singing, they are singing in this language. Some do covers and some do original songs, and they have become quite popular both in Japan and abroad. So this is a way also to learn Okinawan people to read the language and to use and to prove that it's useful for culture, for song, and to market it to the Japanese general public who wouldn't mind if only Japanese were taught in schools and so on. So this song is used in a, you could call it a language political project, as well as being a phonetic translation. So these things you can study, and I think I'll have two slides. Would that be okay? Studying examples like this, as you make all sorts of observations on source-target relations in song translation, such as the multimodal presentation, the artist persona, the way she is dressed can be a potential part of the translink cross-cultural transfer. You take the song, but you also take something else with it. And the written music lyrics performance can be a source for the target music lyrics performance. We saw here that the original lyrics about Sadie the cleaning lady with a pail of water becomes a source, not for the lyrics, but for the target music, target song performance. She sang it as if everyone knew that this song was about Sadie the cleaning lady, so we don't have to say it. And there are other cases where perhaps the original music, the translator finds something in the music that isn't in the lyrics, and so uses it in a different, perhaps better way. The prosody, the verse shape of the song is also kind of a source for the target lyrics. Bum, bum, ba-da-da, bum, bum. You sort of translate the movement of that phrase. Sounds and actual words of the source language can be mixed in as well. It happens not just in Japan, but I think very often in Japan pop music. And also the music passes through a similar translation relation. Sometimes it's just the same. Sometimes you rearrange it for other instruments, and you could hear it gives a different impression than it does in the Disney film. And also a song lives on in further use in situations, modes, and functions that may be different. And this would then be a determining factor that then you also want to change the music and lyrics for it to suit this new purpose. So this brings me then to 5 special features of song translation. And I think you can have conceptualization that focuses on the multimodal situation, how everything visual, audio, gestural is combined in a presentation, or you can have analysis that puts lyrics at center. You study what translators do with words, and then the rest of this is a context. But I think what I think is it's okay if we also somehow take these 5 factors in mind. Also, I'd like to claim that this makes songs a special kind of textual material, and that is the first 2 have to do with music and the words, but then also the multimodal situation, also minding the musical contribution, which I would say consists of three parts: that the melody sets the prosody, the inflections, the stresses, the emotion, not just syllables, but the whole line. But then also it is in some way the art of a verse. You write verse, and it's not just rhyme. It's having to do with everything that is verse: parallel, symmetry, juxtaposition, repeating things. Do your chores, wash the floors, repeated syntax, and so paired statements. But then also that music creates impression. Music sort of adds something, meaning, but all the reactions, emotions, impressions, different things in different songs. But then you also would mind that the phonetic value in itself, it permeates everything. That music is sound. In euphony, onomatopoeia, it imitates or it creates patterns. Lyrics are short. You don't have all that many words, and that means that a single word can matter a lot more, especially when you sing the song several times. A word like emancipation, it gains value every time the song is repeated, played again. Intertextuality is of prime importance. It seems that music songs are exponents of genres. They're supposed to be recognizable or memorable, or remind you of other songs, writing themselves into a certain genre, or using words that carry some resonance, cultural resonance. It leads itself then into a metatextual aspect too. You sing a song about singing this song. You could very well imagine Steve Monk is singing, I sing the song about cleaning, while she's doing it. And finally, appropriation. A song is a song when it is sung. So a song tends to be sung because of a certain situation. We have a party, we sing a song. We need to give attention to the Okinawa people. So we listen to their songs. So you use the song in some way. So then from this follows that in translation, you can either decide or stumble upon a different use of the song. Or of course, in another culture, you want to do something with these sociocultural resonance, exchange it for something that is equally evocative for target audiences. And if a translator changes, then perhaps just one word, the song gives a completely different impression. And some change more than that. Some keep the words and what I say, it's about imitation. Oh, I don't need to go into that. But Steve Monk also said that when she sang but Baccarat, she couldn't get until she realized that what she needed to do was imitate the sound of Dionne Warwick. The words didn't matter, but what mattered was that she sang this music the same way as it was originally sung. And then, of course, the music is the basis for the lyrics that the translator writes, whether she likes it or not, except in cases where the music isn't part of the translation brief situation at all. And this is what I like to say. Is there anything more to?
Okay, well, thank you. What
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Francis. well, given the time we have, we probably won't have time for questions. Maybe we should be a bit generous, just give one question. If we can just have one question, and then we will close the event. Could I ask? Yes, Bridget, is that okay? We have one question here. It's we have several questions now.
Yes, may I ask, sign language translation seems to rule out many of the features, the musical contributions you mentioned. And notice some AVTL songs is not solely for accessibility purposes. Language translation song hits the front line of a social media feed, right? A sung language music went viral again in China. Sign language translations of patriotic songs, not necessarily heard, are used as one way of reinforcing national pride. What makes sign language different from right? Yeah, I'd like to. Yeah, that's is sign language. Is it music or is it performance? There's a performance of some kind of the lyrics, but there is a way also in sign language of communicating that this is singing.
Thank you very much. I think it's great.
But there is some research in that. Yes, I have a reference to.
Sorry, I hope I didn't interrupt you. Thank you very much, Tianye, for your questions there. I think, yeah, given that Brit already asked first, sorry. So we will, Brit, would you like to turn on your mic and then ask your questions?
Yeah, sure. Thanks. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you so much for a very interesting talk. I'm interested, actually. I'm doing a PhD in collaborative translation of opera at Manchester University. And I'm looking at how various agents can create singable texts for opera. And it's kind of something that hasn't really been documented, I guess. But what I would like to ask you specifically is whether there are particular authors. You mentioned Lowe, with this kind of prescriptive taxonomy of song translation. But do you see, in your opinion, are there things that we can take from song translation and bring to operatic translation, or do you see them very much as different kind of genres?
I very much would like to see cross-pollination and comparisons between opera translation and popular music translation.
Okay.
Some aspects pertaining to the musical contribution are very similar, aren't they?
Yeah. They
you have to borrow from theater translation the things that comes with structuring a whole play story.
I was just wondering whether you considered whether Lowe's sort of pentathlon sort of taxonomy was something that you think could be applied to opera as well.
Yeah, he mentions opera. You should read the book, the works by Apter and Herman too.
I have.
Yes, and there is an anthology called Opera and Translation.
Yeah.
Sherban and someone. Do you have that too?
Yeah, I've got that as well.
Right. Well, then you're well set. I think you can apply something as Peter Lowe's pentathlon principle it makes heuristic sense as a guide for how to make useful singable lyrics.
Yeah.
You have to be careful how you define these 5 categories, I think.
Sure.
One thing is singability, and I don't. You have to know more precisely what you mean with singability.
Sure, singability and performability, I guess I'm looking at. So they're different kind of concepts. But can I just ask as well very quickly, you mentioned about the bibliography that you'd happily share. Yes. Could we get that?
You would need to text me, I think.
Yeah, sure, I can do that.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Or right. I forgot to. Here is where I am. Right. Johan Franzon, Helsinki.
Excellent. Thank you so much. I will do that.
Tack.
We switch to Danish and Swedish. Yes. Okay, so well, I'm pretty sure there will be lots of questions, but given the time we have, I hope you don't mind if you have further questions. You're more than welcome to write directly to Johan, and it's our great pleasure to have you here. Thank you so much for your most wonderful talk, and we really enjoyed the sound as well. Really interesting. It's actually the sound itself also have transnational concept, especially in the last one. It's really interesting with different players, and even the sound in Japanese is not, some of them not in Japanese, and the singers herself is not Japanese either. Well, at least from my observation, I could be wrong. So it's, yeah, it's really interesting research. Thank you so much for that. So given the time, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Again.
I'm extremely happy to be here.
It's our great honor to have
here.
both you and Francis here today. Thank you so much for that. Okay, so I just wanted to close our events now. So thank you very much for all the participants who are attending our 9th Sterling August Translation Studies Research event this year, 2022. And we had 9 speakers from different parts of the world. We have Professor Defeng Li from the University of Macau, Professor, if I could remember, Catherine Baxter from the University of Northumbria, Professor David Johnston from the University from Belfast, Queen's Belfast University, and then we have Professor Miguel Jimenez Prisco from the US. And then we have Mavis Ho from the University of Edinburgh. And then we have Hilary Brown from the University of Birmingham. And then today we have the 3 of you, Professor Natalie Edwards from the University of Bristol, and Professor Francis Jones from the University of Newcastle, and then Professor Johan Franzon from the University of Helsinki. So we pretty much covered all the continents, and also thank you so much to all the participants. And I'm aware we had participants on different days from the US, from different parts of the world, and thank you so much for your active participation and also all the questions and the active engagement you have. So it's been a great honor for me to organize this event, and also I've also learned a lot from this event as well. And also, before I closing down, I would like to thank the 2 co-organizers, Yayuan Liu and also Yuchen Chen, for their excellent support. And yes, Yuchen is there. So they are both PhD students here at Sterling. So yeah, thank you so much. And for those of you I have not seen you in person, so hopefully one day you will come to visit me here in Sterling. So once again, thank you so much everybody for participating our 9th Sterling August Translation Studies event. Thank you very much everybody. And just a bit of housekeeping that the video recording 8 out of 9 of this talk